Ryan Leonard made the tough decision that he will not be joining the Capitals in the fall.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the big news around the Capitals that Ryan Leonard made the decision that he will not be joining the Capitals. What was behind his decision? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about the movement that Brian MacLellan made. He met with the press today. He said where he thinks a lot of these players will fit in, and he was asked the question if he's done making moves. Is he? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about Alex Ovechkin as he weighs in on the moves that the Capitals made. But just to get it going here, that was the big news around the Capitals today, was that Ryan Leonard made the tough decision not to join the Capitals. It wasn't an easy decision for him to make. It was a decision that he made by seeking advice from his agent and his brother. They put together a spreadsheet kind of weighing the pros and cons. And ultimately what he said is, hockey will be waiting for me, but when I join the Capitals and I start my career in the NHL, I want to be ready. And to a certain extent, you got to respect that. In a large respect, you got to respect that. So I do respect his decision, as we have no other choice. Of course, I would have loved to see him join the team in the fall. Could you imagine what this team would look like with all the recent additions plus Ryan Leonard? That would be quite something. But that was the big decision today. Ryan Leonard announced his decision to return for his sophomore season at Boston College in mid-April. He revealed that he had considered signing with Washington after being offered a contract by Brian MacLellan. Leonard, who's only 19 years old, is currently participating in his second Capitals development camp after being selected as the 8th overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft. A lot of excitement when the Capitals selected Ryan Leonard, and a lot of excitement will be there when he makes his decision to join the team. During a media session, he discussed the decision-making process, emphasizing the support and guidance he received from his agent, family, and particularly his brother, who played a significant role in helping him choose to continue with Boston College for another year. We know why we want him on the team. He can score goals. He is a great skater. He brings some snarl to his game, but he is 19 years old. And I think the right thing for him is to let him take his time. If he doesn't feel like he's ready, let's not rush it. Reflecting on his brother's experience, including being drafted by the Sharks in 2018 and returning to school for his sophomore and junior seasons before joining the Sharks, Ryan Leonard acknowledged the challenge of deciding whether to commit to Boston College or pursue an NHL opportunity with the Capitals, despite his initial plan to play 2 years at Boston College, considering professional options. You had to think there was a lot of money there. And at 19 years old, how do you walk away from that? Knowing it's going to be there someday, but being able to get that sooner than later, that had to be difficult. Leonard admitted that the contract from the Capitals came as a surprise and left him uncertain about his next move. He credited his brother for providing valuable support during this pivotal decision-making process. We know it was a tough decision. And I think that it's selfish to an extent. I'm going to say I'm selfish that I want to see him on this team sooner than later. But if you look at it big picture, I think that when these players have time to work at the lower levels, especially, like I've said, he's 19 years old. I think it will only benefit him that when he's finally ready, he will have had that experience and be ready to go. Mac shed light on the meeting and emphasized that there was no pressure on Leonard to sign, underscoring that the Capitals presented him with an option and assured him that either decision would be respected. The offer for an entry-level NHL contract was extended to Leonard just before the Capitals' first-round postseason matchup with the New York Rangers, and Leonard shared that the main conversation took place the day after the Capitals secured a playoff spot with a win over the Flyers. Additionally, Leonard's remarkable performance in his first season in the NCAA, where he accumulated 60 points from 40 games and set a new school record for the most goals scored by a freshman. That is where the anticipation comes from as Capitals fans. Can you imagine what he's going to bring to the team? Despite the tempting NHL opportunity, Leonard highlighted his commitment to striving for team success and seeking redemption in the NCAA tournament with Boston College, particularly after falling short in the 2024 national championship. The anticipated return to the highly touted prospect James Higgins for the 2025 season added to Leonard's motivations to pursue the college path for another year, emphasizing his aspiration to secure a national title. The tough part and where everyone kind of we're starting to draw conclusions, like I talked about, was the Will Smith thing. He acknowledged the departure of his longtime line mate, Will Smith, who signed with the Sharks. Leonard emphasized that his decision was driven by the collective pursuit of success and the unique experience of college. And he knows that it will be there when it's ready, when he's ready. And that is a unique position for a guy of his age to be in. He referenced a conversation with former college player Kevin Hayes, who advised him to maximize his time at college, contributing to his resolve to continue with Boston College for another year, knowing that he is going to be that much better of a player. Expressing his dedication to contributing to a winning culture and the aspiration to achieve multiple championships, Leonard affirmed his commitment to Boston College and underscored his intention to help elevate the program to the level of success it previously attained. He also addressed the importance of learning from each season, regardless of the outcome, and using these experiences to prepare for future opportunities. The experience, of course, will be beneficial for him. And we saw glimpses of greatness. We've seen how he's played at development camp. We saw how he played on the junior level. We saw how he played for Boston College. It's all there. The one thing, I guess, is the cause of concern is hopefully he doesn't get injured or something of that nature. But those are things that are kind of outside of all of our control. They're outside of his control. And we just have to be happy for him. And almost like children on Christmas, waiting for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day to open that present, we know it's going to be extra sweet when that day arrives. All right, so coming up here after the break, are the Capitals done making moves? Brian MacLellan weighed in on that. I'll discuss straight ahead. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And it's one of the things in life, I'm a big Nationals fan, and say I want to get tickets to the game, and I'm like, I'm going to get those on my break today at work. All of a sudden, I forget about it. Well, it's actually beneficial as prices actually get cheaper closer to first pitch. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Brian MacLellan met with the Capitals press today. He discussed what has happened, the additions to this team, the subtractions, and where they all fit. And is he done? He said in a large part that this team got a lot better, of course, than it was at the end of the season. But what was his thoughts on the event so far? The Capitals general manager, Brian MacLellan, addressed the media on Wednesday to discuss the team's recent activity during the NHL Free Agency. Operating from their war room in Las Vegas, Nevada, MacLellan orchestrated the trade of Nick Jensen and a draft pick to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Jacob Chychrun. Additionally, the Capitals secured defenseman Matt Roy on a 6-year contract and signed forwards Taylor Radish, Brandon Duhaime to shorter terms. MacLellan's strategic moves include the acquisitions of Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, and Logan Thompson, have resulted in significant overhaul of the Capitals roster. We thought things were going to change. And to be honest with you, I didn't see this many changes taking place. It's kind of exciting. It'll be interesting to see what kind of player Pierre-Luc Dubois is, what kind of player Andrew Mangiapane is. Can he find his former glory, and is Logan Thompson the answer in net for the Capitals? And reflecting on the team's performance last year, MacLellan stated, "We recognize the areas needing improvement. We were aware of the necessity to enhance our capabilities." Mac also acknowledged the pressure on star player Alex Ovechkin to deliver results due to the team's previous lack of depth. A lot of pressure on Alex Ovechkin, and maybe unfairly so. Why was it up to him to be the only one to score goals? We know that Dylan Strome was the guy to start the season. He took the charge in scoring a lot of goals, but you need scoring up and down the lineup if your team is going to be successful. He expressed hope that the improved overall team composition would provide Ovechkin with greater support in the upcoming season. That is the hope, of course, that the team is in a better position. They were asked, you turned over a third of the roster in the last 2 weeks. How would you assess the job you've done? Max said, pretty excited about it. I think our group did a good job. I think we had a good draft, good free agency, and a couple good trades. We're excited to start the season. And those decisions that he made, I think some of them were easy, some of them were tough. The things that I like the most is that he didn't mortgage the farm to make the team better. In years before, that was the case, but I think the moves that were made were pretty low-risk moves. You saw the removal of Malenstein from the lineup, and Jensen, Pacioretty, and Nicolas Aube-Kubel. I think that the additions outweigh the subtractions to the team. You said you wanted to change up your defense. What was the goal in adding both Chychrun and Matt Roy? Max said, just the elements they provide, the Chychrun thing, the offense, the shot, the ability to jump in the play, and the Roy thing is stabilizing, and I think has a little more offense to his game where we can jump into plays. He's a good skater, so I think a good skill set now seems to fit better now than it did before. And Chikrin is a guy that, even though he is a blue liner, does have an offensive flair. In the video that I watched on him, said that in his younger days playing in hockey, he was a forward, so he plays the best with the puck on his stick. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of player he is. I imagine that he will be playing on the top pairing with John Carlson, but he could fit in anywhere. And then you take a look at Roy, the Capitals being all in, giving him a 6-year deal. That is quite a vote of confidence for Roy. Where do you see Chikrin and Roy slotting in? They asked Mac. I really like our right side. It's got a little bit of everything. And I think the left side, they'll experiment with. You could see Chikrin and Carlson, which I think would be a good pair. You could see Chikrin and Roy. You could see Chikrin with TVR. I think they can move the left side around depending on what they want to accomplish matchup-wise. And one of the things that they talked about, I believe it was Tarek El-Bashir was asking him about, so, you have more defensemen than you have historically. And Mac also said, well, we needed more last year in previous years just due to injury. How much were you interested in Chikrin before he was traded to Ottawa? Mac said, yeah, we were in on him. We've been on him a couple times. Yeah, his contract is up soon. Is there a potential for him to stay here long-term? And this is one of the things that I like the most. The answer that Mac had is he wanted to see how he plays. We're not going to back up the Brinks truck to Chikrin's house just because he's has the potential of being a great player. He did not play some of his best hockey with Ottawa. Let's do the right thing. But what Mac said more specifically, he said, yeah, we'll wait. We'll see how the fit is, both for him, if he likes the organization, the coaches, his role. We've got a lot of time to figure that one out. Wise moves. And Brian MacLellan surprising me. I'm going to be honest with you. There was a lot of talk amongst Capitals fans and myself saying, is Mac done here? Is he, with the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Capitals getting eliminated in short order in the playoffs, are his days limited with the Capitals? I think he went out and totally redeemed himself. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, just kind of learning more. I think with the Pierre-Luc Dubois thing, I think with the Mangiapane thing, I think with all the moves that were made on July 1st, that the Capitals are markedly better than they were to end the season. Am I favoring them to win the Stanley Cup? I didn't say that, but the moves he made, I think, took a lot of us by surprise. Talking about Brandon Duhaime and Taylor Radish penciled in for the fourth line, he said. Max said, we'll see how it works in training camp, but Duhaime definitely with Nick Dowd, and we'll figure out the right side as the camp goes through. Duhaime had 7 fights last year. Was that something you guys were looking to add? Max said, the physicality, I think, is important. He's a hard forechecker, finishes checks. I think we need the element in our game, and I think it works well with Dowd. I think him and Garnet Hathaway played well together, and I envision him and Duhaime will play well together as well. Physicality, that has been one of the things that has been consistent about the Capitals for years. Just off the top of my head, of course, Wilson, Erskine, there's been tough guys, Matt Hendricks, if you want to rewind time a little bit further, that there's always been a physical brand of hockey within the Capitals organization. I think the Capitals play best when they play a heavy physical game. So to add a player that has a physical element, I think is huge. What about Radish? Max said he's an interesting player. I think we can get more out of him. He has a pretty good skill set, pretty good size, can make plays. It's just a matter of getting him an identity. I think 20 goals a couple years ago, I think he could complement those two with playmaking, keeping plays alive, and provide some offense. He then positioned and talked about Connor McMichael, a huge thing for the Capitals, a bridge deal that was signed, and it was a deal that needed to get done. Connor McMichael has grown by leaps and bounds. So for him to now be under contract, I think is reassuring for Connor and also Capitals fans. Max said, I think so. I think Connor sees himself as going to be, take strides forward where we're at right now. I think a bridge deal makes sense for both sides. And I agree. I think it's in the Capitals' best interest. I also think it's in McMichael's best interest. Talking about the goalie changes and adding that Logan Thompson and what does that mean for Charlie Lindgren and Hunter Shepard? It was asked, and Max said, "Good. I mean, Charlie had a great year last year, and Logan has been a good goalie here for a number of years." One of the things that he is doing, he is kind of a hyper vigilant guy. I guess I'm going to say somewhat like myself. That I think that he wanted to address any possible deficiency for the Capitals. We know that Charlie Lindgren was good last year, but what if he isn't? Or what if he gets injured? Is that going to mean that it's going to be Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson as a number one and number two? On paper, I don't have a problem with that, but it is an unproven tandem at the NHL level. So, to kind of widen the lens and get a higher view, I can see why they added Logan Thompson for depth, of course, but also for insurance. Why did you decide Thompson was the goaltender to go out and get? Max said, just like the way he's played, we have a good relationship with him. Our staff has a relationship with him. He's gained a lot of experience. He's got good size, plays a good style. Looking forward to having him on the team. So all positive moves. And again, I got to give Brian MacLellan A marks, maybe not A plus, but I'm going to go ahead and say A marks. He addressed what is ailing this team. Some people could say that you didn't go out and get Marchessault. Some people said you didn't go out and get Gensel. Would those names have been better? Of course. What would the Capitals have had to give up is one of the things that I think was in Brian MacLellan's mind. I don't want to mortgage the farm. I don't want to give up, a Connor McMichael, a Hendricks Lapierre, and even Mirshnashenko, a Leonard, something like that for this veteran that, is good. But how are we going to be years from now? I really believe that the Capitals' focus right now is kind of just setting it on cruise control a little bit, fixing up this car to get it across the finish line for the Alex Ovechkin era, maybe giving it some new spark plugs, some new tires, some new brakes, nothing fancy, but just to get it over the finish line. And hey, it's still a runner. And then once Alex Ovechkin hangs up the skates, this team that's been put together with draft picks, you take a look at prospects and Hershey, those players will be ready to go. You didn't get rid of those players for this win now mode that the Capitals have been guilty of many years. I think that Brian MacLellan has matured. I think he has seen how the team has changed. And ultimately, I think that Brian MacLellan has evolved and is now a better GM. So it's refreshing to see what this team has done. And I'm already excited about seeing this team in the fall. All right, so coming up here after the break, Alex Ovechkin weighs in. A very simple response to what Brian MacLellan did. What was his response? I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And happy 4th of July or July 3rd, depending on when you're watching this. But happy 4th of July, a really special time of year. And thank you all for listening or watching me talk about Capitals hockey or the NHL in general, as many of the podcasts, the big guns out there, have hung it up until the fall. So thank you for sticking with me here and Locked On's commitment to covering your Capitals year around. In this next segment here, we're going to talk about Alex Ovechkin and what were his thoughts about what Brian MacLellan did. What were his thoughts about adding Pierre-Luc Dubois? What are some of the things that we know that Alex Ovechkin said is he wanted Brian MacLellan to go out and get a center? He alluded to that he lacked chemistry with the centers and the lines that were constantly getting juggled. On paper, right now, I see it being Pierre-Luc Dubois on the top line as the center for Alex Ovechkin, at least at the start, and see how it goes. I know that I'm being optimistic that everything is going to go off without a hitch, but I would rather start off with the optimistic foot than the negative one. During a busy offseason characterized by significant trades and contract negotiations, Brian MacLellan received a text from Washington Capitals captain, Alex Ovechkin. Despite Ovi being overseas, in just a single text, Ovi conveyed his sentiments about the team's direction by using a thumbs up emoji. They pressed him a little bit more. When did you get that emoji? And he said after the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois. And I think that Alex Ovechkin trusted that the Capitals, I think he trusted that Brian MacLellan was going to go out and fix this team. That he wants to build a supporting cast around Alex Ovechkin so he can be the best player that he can possibly be. And also take some of the pressure off him. So if he does, not score 100 goals, or you know what I'm talking about, like 30, 40, 50 goals, that there's other players on the team that can get it done. And not only that, but to have that chemistry potentially with a center that has been something that has eluded him for quite some time. The message came after the team acquired Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Kings in exchange for Darcy Kemper, initiating a pivotal period of 2 weeks during which the Caps made several consequential moves. Subsequent to the Dubois trade, Washington also secured Logan Thompson and Jacob Chychrun, while parting ways with Beck Malenstein and Nick Jensen. Additionally, the team bolstered its roster by adding Matt Roy, Brandon Duhaime, and Taylor Radish during free agency. So, we've seen a lot of things from Alex Ovechkin, him playing volleyball with a pot belly. Then we saw the photos out there that were supposedly from Alex Ovechkin's wife showing him rather fit. So I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. That I think that maybe some Photoshop was in play in some of those photos. But in any event, Alex Ovechkin weighing in from overseas on his thoughts on the Capitals, he has to feel pretty happy, I think, all things considered, being that he is the captain and what he has meant for this team for so many years. With approximately a third of the roster undergoing significant changes, the Caps have currently concluded their active phase of roster adjustments. While MacLellan has limited communication with Ovi and their leadership group since these developments transpired, he remains optimistic that the team will be satisfied with the current trajectory. Expressing confidence in the acquisitions, Mac opined, "I think they all fit. They're all good players. They're all at the right age. I just think it's going to make our team better and make the players around them better too. It's better for younger guys to be slotted in with good players, and it's easier game to play with them as well." And sometimes you see the struggles around the National Hockey League, teams that are primarily younger players. Last year, who comes to mind? The Buffalo Sabres, a team that is quite heavy with young players, a team, again, that I say is going to be very good in years to come, is the case. And I agree with his assessment that a team that has veterans, I mean, you have Alex Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, John Carlson, etc. But to add to that, and the biggest thing for me, as I watch the videos with Chychrun and Mangiapane, is that, for one, a lot of these players know Dylan Strome. It seems like every player out there, do you know a player on the Washington Capitals? And most every one of them goes, yeah, I know Strome, or I used to live with Strome. Strome has been there and done that. But in any event, they talked about Chychrun knowing various players on this team, and Mangiapane knowing the coaches and that kind of thing. So I think that when there's familiarity, that is a good thing. And Jacob Chychrun talked about that as well. Andrew Mangiapane also mentioned that familiarity is a big thing. So I think that it's not going to be so foreign that, you look at Andrew Mangiapane, he comes here, he's going to know, hey, I know this guy from here. And Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to say, I know that guy from there. That I think that this team can build chemistry and branch out to some of the veterans on the team as well. And I think this team has the makings of being a really good team. Contenders, I think they have what it takes to make it to the playoffs. I don't want to get ahead of myself and say how far in the playoffs, but all things considered, I am very happy with this team, and I think they will hit the ground running in the fall. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals, and I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.